Among the porcelain dolls and carnivorous plants in Maria's cafe, I'd rarely met another customer. Maria went to the door and opened it a crack. For a moment, my table was flooded with moonlight.
"Buenas noches, Maria,"
a man's voice said. "Buenas noches." The door closed, plunging the room once again into near darkness. The man passed by my table. His face was turned away, but in the pale light from the kitchen, I observed that he carried himself in the way very tall men often do, shoulders slumped in a sort of apology for taking up so much space. He wore a baseball cap pulled low on the forehead. A hardback book was tucked under one arm. He went to a table in the corner, the one farthest from my own. When he sat down, his back to me, the wooden chair creaked so violently I thought it might break. Maria took a match out of her apron pocket, struck it against the wall, and dipped the flame into a crimson jar on the man's table. Only after she had retreated into the kitchen to fetch his coffee did he turn around and glance at me from beneath the brim of his hat. In the flickering red candlelight, only his slightly jutting chin was visible, the rest of his face receding into shadows. "Hello," I said.
"Good evening."
"You're American," I said, surprised. Foreigners were scarce in Diriomo. Encountering a fellow American in this particular cafe in the middle of the night was utterly strange.
"I am,"
he said. He gave a polite wave of the hand before leaning over the table and peering into his book. He held the candle above the page, and I considered warning him it was bad for his eyes to read in the darkness. He seemed like the kind of man who needed to be told these things, the kind of man who ought to have someone taking care of him. Soon Maria brought him coffee. Something about the way he lifted his cup, the way he turned the pages of his book, even the way he tilted his head toward Maria in silent thanks when she brought him a napkin and a bowl of sugar cubes, struck me as familiar. I watched him closely, wondering if the feeling that I knew him was simply an illusion brought about by my having been traveling alone for too long. The longer I sat there, however, the more I became convinced that it was not the vague familiarity of one countryman to another, but something more personal. While he drank his coffee and read his book, seemingly oblivious to me, I tried to recall the context in which I might have known him. I sensed more than knew that it had been a long time ago, and that there had been some degree of intimacy between us. This sensation of intimacy, coupled with my inability to remember, was completely unsettling. The thought crossed my mind that I might have slept with him. There had been a period following my sister's death when I slept with many men. This was a long time ago, though, so long that now it almost seemed like a different life. Maria brought my food. I waited for the steaming plantain leaves to cool before peeling them away, picking up the nacatamal, and biting in. Back home, I had tried several times to replicate Maria's combination of pork, rice, potatoes, mint leaves, raisins, and spices, but it never came out right. When I tried to tease the recipe out of her, she just laughed and pretended not to understand my request. "You should try these," I said to the man between bites.
"Oh, I know Maria's nacatamal," he said, glancing my way once again. "Delicious, but I already ate."
What could he be doing here so late at night, I wondered, if he had already had his supper? In Diriomo, men did not sit alone in cafes reading books, even American men. A few minutes later, when I took my wallet out to pay, he closed his book and stared at the cover for a few seconds, as if to gather courage, before standing and walking over to my table. Maria watched us shamelessly from the doorway of the kitchen. The red curtain was pulled aside, filling the room with soft light. For a moment, it occurred to me that perhaps Maria had set this whole thing up for my benefit. Perhaps she was trying to pull off a bit of matchmaking. The man removed his baseball cap and held it in both hands. His shaggy hair grazed the low ceiling, gathering static.
"Pardon me," he said.
Now I could see his face completely. The large dark eyes and wide mouth, the high cheekbones and prominent chin covered with stubble.